Hello, everybody. Welcome back to This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am your host, Perry. This is episode 116. I'm very happy to welcome back into the show Haley from Wilderness Trail, as well as the master distiller over there, Shane Baker. Such a really fun interview and conversation that I get to have with the both of them. That's going to be coming up just a little bit later. I am kind of on my own this week in terms of co-hosts and everything, so there's not going to be any news, there's not going to be any reviews, rather, but I will still have some news up top. Still going to do what you've been drinking recently, and then I will, of course, finish it out with tips and bits at the end. So, we'll jump straight into it. So I guess that I will start with not really flying blind because, nobody's here to blind me, but I'm just hanging out here, recording in the studio, sipping on a little bit of Kentucky Spirit from Wild Turkey. This is actually a pick that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, along with the folks over at OBC and BHG, which is the Bluegrass Hospitality Group. That is the company that runs and owns places like Malone's and OBC and Drake's and Harry's, and they're just a fantastic group of people. You guys have heard, of course, Iverson on the show before, a great friend, and he is a big part of their kind of day-to-day operations at OBC. And of course, I always recommend if you are in town, you need to go and check them out. So this is a really, really good pick. I'm not just saying that because I was on it. I'm saying it because it legitimately is a fantastic bourbon. Things I've been drinking recently. Let's see. I have been fortunate enough to receive a couple of bottles from our friends up at the Speakeasy, Wisconsin, specifically Troy and Jeff. I want to say thank you guys so much for sending me this bottle of 1792 Full Proof, which is absolutely fantastic, and then a Knob Creek single barrel as well, both of which I've not had anything bad come out of the Speakeasy up there, or any of the stores that you guys have done your picks through. So thank you all so much for allowing me to not just try those, but also have a bottle of them. Very, very cool. I recently broke back out my favorite Bookers as well, off your rocker, which Travis Gentz or Whiskey Warriors or Cletus, if you know him, I also broke out recently and was talking about just how fantastic it is. And I gotta say, man, it is a great, great bourbon. I absolutely love it to death. And I have a hard time, steering away from it because it is so good. So I have to kind of keep it tucked away, and every now and then I'll come back to it. Just because, hey, you got to treat yourself every now and then. So that's kind of what I've been drinking recently. We're going to jump into some quick hot news real quick. The first of which, if you listen to this week's Patreon bonus episode, this month's Patreon bonus episode, I talk a little bit about it, but I got to attend the announcement event for the Fresh Bourbon Distilling Company, which is going to be launching here in Lexington, Kentucky later on in the year. They're going to be building, their own distillery. They are currently sourcing their product from Hartfield and Company, but here very soon they're going to be creating their own distillate. Very cool. If I believe everything, and I try to, especially what I read, this is one of the first African-American run distilleries in Kentucky since Prohibition, if not the first. And I think it might be the first if I'm remembering correctly. But this is a really cool opportunity. They're going to be located in Lexington's Distillery District. So they're going to have their own building, of course. Very cool for them. I'm super excited to see what's going to come out of the Fresh Bourbon Distilling Company here very soon. And just so this is something that I've kind of been clued into here recently as well, fortunately enough, because I know somebody who works in the Kentucky government, which is really, really cool. But there is legislation that is being passed to try to open up some parts of the Kentucky River to allow transportation via the water between different distilleries. So this is something that hasn't been allowed in many, many years. The river has been closed off basically for navigation in certain parts. So this would be a really cool experience for people to go through and check out some different distilleries in a very, very unique experience. So more on that when that comes. I know that's I believe it's gone to the floor. So that's probably going to get passed here soon. More info on that as it comes about. That kind of does it for this week's news. There's not a whole lot that's been going on recently, but that's what happens in the early months of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it to our interview for this week with Haley and Shane. This is a really, really fun conversation about what is going on with Wilderness Trail and all of the really incredible innovations that they have kind of gone through and experienced, and the experimentation that they have worked through over the past few years. They've been open since 2012, so now, about 8 years. And how all of that kind of led to them, of course, being bumped up recently to the Bourbon Trail, which is so cool. And we applaud them. They're such good friends of the show. We're so happy to see this for them. But we do kind of get into the weeds. We get into a bit of the nitty gritty, Haley and I do, in terms of, what's all this about? Why is this a thing that you felt was necessary? So I'm excited for you guys to hear that. Also, when Shane comes on a little bit later in the episode, there is a bit of a scoop, a little bit of an exclusive that comes out that I don't think he intentionally dropped, but I was not told not to include it. So you will hear that. We actually talk about it a little bit. It's a really, really interesting take on how they are approaching their market with their whiskey. So go ahead and enjoy this. I'll be back at the end to wrap it up with tips and bits, and see you guys soon. So this is fun. I'm excited to be here at Wilderness Trail Distillery for the first time ever with the podcast. And of course, there was no way that I could come here and not have good friend of the show, Haley, on.
There's no way.
Hi, Haley.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Welcome to Wilderness Trail.
Welcome back. So this is actually the second time I've ever been here.
Okay.
I was here probably about 2 years ago. I was doing a private tour for one of our clients, and I actually was able to go and do the tour with them too, and check out the facilities and everything. And that was kind of, I think that was around the same time that the 4-year-old Weeded Bourbon had come out.
Yes.
And so I kind of knew about it, but I didn't know a lot about it.
Right.
And we're kind of hoping that Shane's going to wind up coming sitting down with us. Shane Baker, one of the founders and master distillers.
Yes.
So we'll see if that happens or not. But I don't know if I've ever actually asked you what your specific role in the distillery is. So what is that?
Well, depends on the day. And
you wear many hats.
Yes. It's funny because we're it's funny how much we're growing, we're expanding, we're doing all these crazy things. And people are like, I'm not really sure how many people are on your marketing team. And I say 3. So
that's not many for the distillery that just got bumped up to the Bourbon Trail.
No,
so.
Yeah, exactly. Here we are making these leaps and bounds, and there's a tripod of us that really hold the grounds for a lot of that. But I do a lot of everything. Some people call me, a bourbon badass. Some people call me a cherub. Depends on what you prefer. But no, my official title is with a bourbon, or was brand distribution marketing.
Right.
So what that means,
who's to say?
I'll let you decide.
But I've seen, on social media, you've done tours before too, and helping people come and understand how the distillery kind of operates and everything.
That's how I got my start.
Okay.
Was tours.
Cool.
That's kind of, for us, that was kind of, or for me specifically, that was my training camp.
Yeah.
Before they let me out into the world.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote, out into the world. That was my requirement, was I had to do a few months of tours. And one of the reasons why is because that is, we don't have a script, but that is your script, right?
Sure,
That is
the experience.
The whole thing is being able to talk all of it the whole way through. So that was kind of, also I live in Lexington, and I wonder if they were like, if she can commit to making that drive every morning,
every day,
she's in. I think that's secretly what it was. It wasn't about branding. It was just to see if I'd actually really be willing to make the drive back and forth.
Sure enough, here you are.
Here I am.
But you didn't have, how much like bourbon knowledge did you have before you came here?
About as much as any red-blooded Kentuckian has. I think it's, it's printed on your birth certificate how to make bourbon, and then the rest of it's just, so yeah, I mean, I knew about as much as that. I knew what the criteria for bourbon was. I knew don't mix nice bourbon with Coke. I used to get, my dad always had kind of said, all right, if you're going to learn how to do this,
you're going to do it right.
You're going to do it right. Exactly. You're going to do it right. If you're going to water it down, you're using an ice cube. And that's it. Don't mix any of it. If
don't screw this up.
Don't screw this up. You are my daughter, damn it.
Strong father.
Very strong. Very strong. It was, no, he would never really talk to me like that. But he would be stern with me, but he would also, but yes, he definitely would, seriously. I couldn't mix with, he'd be like, if you're going to mix, here's the jack,
I had to figure out I would say the proper way to drink bourbon kind of on my own.
Sure. Okay.
My dad, for a long, long time, drank Makers on the rocks with a splash of water.
Okay.
So not only was it getting watered down with the water, but then as the ice melted, then it was super watered down.
He just wait like a minute in the middle. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Pierre's dad.
Dad, I love you. I know you listen to the show, but
I don't know why you're doubling down.
I couldn't do it.
I do feel like I kind of know your dad just from watching some of the live streams you guys do sometimes, which are hilarious. So
my dad's a character.
He's so funny.
I love him to death. But anyway, enough about our parents. So
dads, right?
Dads are great.
Yeah.
Yes. But the point in asking like how much knowledge did you have coming in here was because like it seems like everybody here kind of figured things out as they went.
Yes.
Right. Aside from Shane and Pat, who came in with this huge vision and what was it, like 20 years of experience or whatever.
Yes.
In fermentation.
Right.
So how have they kind of been guiding lights for you?
Oh gosh.
In developing whatever your multiple roles are with the company.
In so many ways. Well, it is funny you say that because we do. All of us are continuously figuring it out as we go, by the seat of the cuff kind of deal. And I mean, it's funny because Shane and Pat are absolute experts in what they do, but even kind of their start and the way they learned was by learning what not to do.
Sure, yeah.
And so I mean, you talk about the huge fermentation experts, but as far as like, learning from the back end, okay, well, if you set up a still like this, you're sure to get this problem over and over and over again. And so mental note there, or, so it is a lot. But I learn something new from both of them anytime I hear them talk, honestly.
Sure. About
bourbon, about the business, about any of it. And so one of the things that I have always done is I try my best to never miss a chance to hear them speak, ever. So if they're doing like a guided tour, if they're doing a presentation, anything like that, if I can make it, I'm going to try to make it.
It's really cool.
You seriously do. And I mean, I have a minor in biology. I was going to be a dentist at one point.
I don't think I knew that.
That's a whole thing.
Sure.
That's a different day.
Won't get into that yet.
But dads, am I right?
There we go.
Here we are.
Bring it back around. Yeah.
But seriously, it was, so I had a background in biology, and so, when it comes to the fermentation side of things, I can scratch the surface as far as the understanding process of it. But they would be going around the facility, showing me around, teaching me different things and teaching me part of the tours, and I'd be behind them Googling exactly what enzymes they're talking about, because I'd never heard these words before. So
that's something that I want to hopefully, like, if Shane does come around, because like I'm so interested in all the enzymes and the yeast strains and everything that go into it, because it's not like, even Jim Beam, I mean, they just use one yeast strain. It's been the same yeast strain since before World War II.
Right.
But like you guys are doing so many different little experimental things and like just going to town on the science side of it.
Right.
Which is so different. Because so many people are like, it's two taste, right?
Right.
But here it's like, yeah, it's two taste, but with science.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I always tell people, we are not the type of like technological crazy. We're not trying to reinvent any kind of bourbon wheel.
Absolutely.
Like, we do everything, we're not trying to do any kind of the micro-aging of barrels or the temperature experiments or anything like that, which, cool, that's an experiment all in of its own. But, everything we do is to a traditional standard.
Yeah.
We just do, everything is so calculated. Everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything. I mean, down to like different angles of pipes, how things, just to make for the most efficient run that we can. And that is even with, the way your yeast behaves. Because there's, depending on what kind of alcohol you want out of it, you're looking for, big ethanol alcohols, stuff you can pump your car full of, or whatever, which none of us here are, I hope.
Please no.
Don't drink gasoline.
Please don't do that.
Anyway, and
there's plenty of bourbon.
There's plenty of bourbon.
Choose well, people.
And it can go pretty high in proof. So,
yeah, right. Yeah, good point.
So, but yeast has, we're, as far as like the firm solution side of things, we deal with, wineries now, brewers yeast, and that's a whole different catalog of yeast in and of itself.
Right.
So just like all those different ways that yeast can behave is so tricky.
Let's talk about, I'll come back to the you guys moving up to the Bourbon Trail stuff here soon too. But I want to talk about the products that you guys have on the market, and the fact that you're supposed to be slated for a new one to come out later this year too, which I'm really excited for. But you started with a wheated bourbon.
Yes.
Which you don't see a whole lot of distilleries doing.
No.
Especially considering that wheated bourbon doesn't always taste as old the younger it is.
Right.
But, high rye mash bills do, or rye whiskeys do. So what, and, maybe it's better answered by Shane, but what was the thought process in a wheat bourbon being the first bourbon to come out from Wilderness Trail?
And Shane will definitely be able to answer this a little bit better, but I think with the wheat, it was a different product that we knew kind of flavor profile that would gear towards what we want and kind of who we are as a brand, which is a funny thing to think about. You did have different grain. We have different grain mash bills and everything like that, but every different brand has kind of a general flavor profile that they shoot for.
For sure.
And so I think that the wheat was definitely a flavor profile that we wanted. It was different for the time and in the market. Like you said, you don't see very many, especially right off the bat.
Well, and to add to that too, a wheated bottled and bond bourbon.
Right.
That is like ticking off all the different boxes that people are like, oh my gosh, we gotta get in on the ground floor here.
Sweet mash, non-chill filtered, all the wow words you could ever want with a bourbon.
Buzzwords.
Yeah. And I definitely the bottled and bond too. Just I think we really wanted to kind of do as you said, that we wanted to set ourselves apart from the rest of the market. Especially, you know, we hit right in the middle of a bourbon boom. You know, we landed, released a new product within the same number of years as like a lot of other brand new names to market. So kind of the mentality of how do you stand out from that? How do you make a product that you're super pumped about? You know, where we are, the number one thing we don't do is source, obviously. Yeah. You know, which is another big, you know, and no shame to any distillery that does that, but that it was just another huge common thing that you saw was, oh, okay, this is sourced from such and such place. They're blending these barrels, da 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 da. So how do you make a name for yourself in a middle of just a huge sea of bourbon at that time, you know, and at this time it's still happening, right?
Oh, for sure.
And so, yeah, I think the wheated, and especially kind of one of the things that, you know, we don't hear a lot about, but we pride ourselves on is it is the only mash bill of its kind since Prohibition. And so having that, you know, just that unique quality to it was pretty important for us. So definitely the wheat just being different. You know, you don't see sweet mash, and then the bottle and bond just kind of really solidifying the credibility. Yeah. Yes, this is Wilderness Trail 100%. We made this. Enjoy, you know. So I think that was the thing, and it's funny because initially we made wheat the most of all the other products we had. We had the most wheat because we just kind of assumed it was going to be our golden pony boy of the market, right? It was our golden child. You're not supposed to pick favorites, but this was going to be ours, I think. And I think once we released our Rise, you know, that kind of got so much light and credibility, and people were so wowed by it that we were like, all right, we might need to shift gears here. We're not sure. We're also waiting to see, you know, wheats, like you said, they take a little bit longer to mature and get those nice, sweeter flavor profiles coming through. So once we reach that 6-year mark, we're really hoping to start seeing a little bit of change as far as the flavor goes.
Sorry, I was getting tangled up in all the wires for a second.
I was trying not to call you out about it.
Jeez.
Perry got tangled sitting still.
Be professional, Perry. Goodness gracious. Yeah, let's talk about the 6-year-old too.
Okay.
Because, you know, if you look at as everybody does, the Breaking Bourbon release calendar.
Yes.
It says it's coming out in March.
Yes.
I'm not asking you to confirm nor deny if that's happening.
Like that face?
I did, yes, I did. But, I mean, that does kind of line up with when you guys put out your first bourbon. Yes. And, you know, it makes sense that, you know, everything's going to, like, coming and going in seasons and everything. But, like, we always speculated on the show that you would stick with what works. You know, yes, it would be nice to see, like, older products come out, but why not, you know, be tried and true to a great 4-year product.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, what are we going to see change with the 6-year? So what can you tell me about the 6-year, I guess, that
So we will have a release probably around the same, you know, we'll have a big release around the same time that we have in the past. Yeah. That date is not actually confirmed, but I think it's in like later March or early April or something like that.
I can beep out whatever you need me to.
It's when and then we'll
That's when everybody's shaking their fists at the sky.
Anyway. No, I really do think I think we're gonna do it actually in April. And so and I mean it will be a Kentucky only release. So
I don't think I knew that either.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I knew basically anything about this. I'm just constantly going, what's the 6-year going to be like?
What's gonna go on there?
What's happening with it?
So that's the big game plan for is gonna just have a release. And with the
other way.
This way? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
And one of the goals we've always had, and you know, don't hold me to this, but we'll always try at least to have is that once we reach the 6-year mark, that'll be our basement going forward. So that's kind of always been the goal. We might change our minds. We might, I mean, we've really, really enjoyed what we've come up with. I didn't make it. I just, I just drink it.
You're just part of it.
I'm just part of it. I just dream of how to sell it.
Yeah, right.
What we've done, we've been so pleased with what's happened with the 4-year that who knows, we might stick to that, but it's always kind of been a goal to at least reach 6. And then once we go from 6, we go from there.
I mean, nobody's holding you to keep it at 4 years.
I don't know. I feel the pressure.
6 years. Do you really?
No. Actually, yes, I do. I think, especially with the wheat, I think a lot of people really want to see what happens as it ages and see kind of what. I think people are as equally as curious as we are to see what happens as it ages.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like, that makes sense, but at the same time, if it's just not up to code, then
it's not.
do what works for you.
Then we'll just kick it back to 4-year.
Blend that 6-year with something. Who's to say?
Who knows? Well, maybe we'll do a special release then. That's the beautiful thing about bourbon is sometimes you can just mess something up and make a happy accident.
Yeah,
and then
right.
it ends up being a special release.
And you guys have done special releases in the past as well. Most notably, I would say this cancer fundraiser.
What about that?
Bottle that I commend you guys for doing what you did, but I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to be a part of this. But then I saw that it was $2,500 a bottle, and I was like, oh my gosh. Now, kudos to anybody who was able to do that, because that is really fantastic. That is a huge, awesome donation that somebody is putting forth, and then they're getting a really great product out of it too. But why? I'm gonna ask the nice questions here, I guess.
Why? Just why?
Just why? Why do you feel compelled to help people? No. Why outsource? Why go and pick a barrel from somewhere else to raise money for cancer? What was that thought process kind of like?
So this actually stemmed from the barrel itself was a charity auction barrel.
Okay.
So this is kind of we're taking a note from your dad here.
Dad, did you hear that? You got a big hand in the way Wilderness Trail makes their decisions.
We're doubling down efforts.
I love that so much. It makes me so happy.
So just like your dad does on the rocks and with a splash of water, this barrel itself started off as a charity barrel. It started off from a charity auction that we ended up somehow winning that auction for. I say winning. Obviously, it was an exchange of currency. So we ended up buying that barrel from a charity auction, also for cancer, also to benefit different cancer societies. And I will say initially we didn't fully have a plan for what we were going to do with it. We'd been working with Bourbon Charity. We've had that barrel for over a year, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So we bought it as a 15-year-old, aged it over here for a year. So to make it a 16.
Yeah.
And so in that time period, we'd started working with Bourbon Charity anyway. So prior to having this barrel, we didn't really have that kind of tie and that relationship. And so, we were like, okay, we're going to do something cool with this. We just don't know what yet. Yeah. And, we even had the day after we bought it, we had a big meeting about it and just like, okay, we're going to figure this out. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be, we just feel really, really good about this. Yeah. And, so we, got our ties with Bourbon Charity, and of course we did the F cancer. I don't know if you're the explicit.
We'd try not to.
Okay.
But, I mean, look, I've had Fred Minnick on multiple times. So.
Sure. So So we had the F cancer. I'll keep it at a minimum for now. We had the F cancer bottles that we did with them with our rye, right? With our regular rye whiskey.
Right.
And that went over beautifully. oh my gosh, that was so fun. It was so awesome. I hope we continue to do cool things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And basically when that's kind of later on that year is when we were like, oh gosh, this is what we're going to do. Like we're going to make this happen. On a very sad and personal note, we had a employee pass recently, and she was fighting the fight. And I think really and truly that was what really fueled the efforts there.
Absolutely.
You know, Shane and Melissa and Pat and the whole Wilderness family really put a lot of emotion and time and effort into doing whatever we could for this person. And I think ultimately that's what really caused made the decision for us.
Sure, yeah.
It was one of those where we were all just like, all right, you know what, you're right, F cancer. And we're gonna F it in a big way. In a big way. So
I love that.
Ultimately, I think that's kind of what really riled us up for it. And I know the sticker shock is there. It is what it is for sure.
But people are going to buy it. And they're going to make that donation.
Yeah.
And, you know, that it's just not something that, of course, everybody can do, but those who can do that and feel compelled to do that, that is so awesome and so cool. And the fact that it is, you know, being put on by somebody who is, or a distillery that is now at the core of the bourbon industry.
Yeah.
And still, of course, y'all are making a name for yourselves because, you know, still being fairly new, of course, but like, my goodness, what a big, awesome thing to see come out of you all. So
it's been cool to watch, and it's been cool to see it received. I mean, people are like, whoa, I love it, but most people say, I wish I could, and you know, I wish I could donate, I wish I could do these things, and even that alone is just like enough for us to say, okay, that was, you know, that's really good. And we've had people buy bottles, and buy the whole thing, and just, I mean, they're either that mad about it, which I don't blame them, or they're just that adamant about Wilderness Trail that they have to have, you know, which either way,
that's really cool.
I support you. About. Yes, that is, it is wild.
I want to talk about too where we're actually sitting.
Okay.
So we're sitting in this conference room.
Yes.
Where as I came in, you said this is where you do the barrel picks.
Yes.
As well, or the single. Clarify that. Was it the single barrels, like for the distillery, or single barrel picks?
The barrel picks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what are these sample bottles that are sitting around me? Are they the individual picks that have come from different places?
They are picks that are cut from different barrels from us. And they're different samples, different kind of honey, you know, those honey samples.
Yeah, right.
And Macaulay, he is our barrel pick guru.
Okay.
We're very fancy with our names here. And so he does what any other, you know, pick taster will do, is he'll go around. And so, you know, if he thinks that there's some, you know, samples that are worth keeping around that might blend with, you know, or might be on a certain flavor profile or whatever. So we are amongst potential single barrel picks right now. So cool. Right?
So awesome.
In a room full of them. In fact, all these are some of the picks that we've had in the past.
Yeah.
I know I'm making for a great podcast by pointing to
it's
things.
fine. I'll just tell people that there's a lot of bottles.
There's a lot of bottles, and they got a lot of stickers and a lot of colorful side labels. It's fun. One has our distillery cat on it. It's great.
Oh, really?
It's a good time, yeah.
That's awesome. I think I met the cat the first time I was here.
That's Cooper.
Yeah. Oh, of course that's Cooper.
Right?
That's awesome.
Right?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Cooper has his own fan group, and it is truly fantastic. There are some people that, because I run our social media too, so there'll be some people that probably never like or comment anything I do unless it has to do with Cooper, and then suddenly they care, and I love it so much just because awesome. Cooper's a great guy.
Cooper says, "Be careful on Super Bowl Sunday."
That's right.
Cooper says, "Happy Father's Day." Perry's dad.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. No, but was the single barrel program something that had always kind of been envisioned, or did it just kind of come along as the product was coming out?
It definitely had always been envisioned. I don't think we just hadn't actually had planned to start it so early in our infancy. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we've only had bourbon out period for the last 2 years, which is, you know, not very long when it comes to the grand scheme of bourbon. And so I think that yeah, I don't think we'd really planned on starting it as early on as we have. And we kind of tried to hold it off for as long as we could, to be honest. And we just you couldn't hold back anymore. The request, the demand for it was overwhelming, to say the
That's
least.
cool.
And it was really cool, but it was also
really
just
cool.
kind of like, all right, I guess we're going to figure this out too.
Here we go.
Here we go again. Yeah. So, you know, right now we're in this conference room. We're hoping to be able to actually like build a nice space so that it is like separate, you know, space.
Yeah.
And they kind of have like a full blown experience the next time, you know, if ever, hopefully they come back. If ever you decide to come back.
You started at like 100 and got down to about 13.
I know,
there
and I don't
in terms of
understand why I
excitement
did
and
that.
energy. That was good. That was really good to see there.
It's just got some humility. It's funny because it's true. Like it's funny because we've grown so much and done so many things, and yet I still am just. I feel like we're such, you know, we're so young in the process that it is. It's overwhelming sometimes, or just kind of shocking to
Yeah, of course.
to see, and
Of
just being
course.
like, I hope people show up today. You know.
They'll come.
They definitely, they're all, it's just the numbers of visitors and picks and just demands growing and growing.
How many visitors do you normally see on a regular basis, week to week, or day to day?
It's changing quite a bit. Well, today's a slow day.
It's a gloomy, rainy Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
I lose track of days very easily.
Apparently.
I knew I was supposed to be here
Right?
today.
You got it?
But I didn't know. Yeah, once I
Right.
got here, I was like, anyway, no.
So, I would say we still are not that highly visited right now. I think we clocked in, I would say we with, and this is the button number I heard was around 50K, but that is with all of the major events we have. That is with all of the different, you know, special groups, special events, all those things kind of all together. So I would probably say a third of that number is actually, you know, regular visitor center tour visits instead. Hopefully we're going to be seeing that number change quite a bit here soon.
That's still a lot of people, though.
It is.
I mean, again, you just said you guys have only had bourbon out for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not distributed nationwide.
Right.
So, I mean, there's plenty of time for the growth to continue. And I think that for you guys, this is a nice segue. This happened very naturally.
We need it to happen as slow as possible, to be honest. I appreciate everyone who wants to come out, but we're at a like growing pains point right now. But that being said, also it's great if you come right now because most of your tours are private.
Yeah,
because
right.
it's about one of you per hour.
But the big thing, one of the reasons that I wanted to come down and do this episode, of course, is because your tourism is going to change here very soon because you are now part of the Bourbon Trail. You moved up from the Craft Bourbon Trail as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
So first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I personally know how long this has been in the works because I heard rumblings of it middle of last year.
Yes. Yes.
So why did it take 6-ish months for that to kind of happen?
Few reasons. One, well, really the timing of it, a lot of it has to do with the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and kind of their fiscal year and their planning and things like that. Because with us being added to the Bourbon Trail, that's all new passports, all new marketing, all new, our name everywhere.
I know full well how all that goes. So, we can talk about that off air, by the way.
Right. So that takes time.
Yeah.
And so that took some time. Also, they were going through a bit of a rebrand with their passports and stuff like that. And so hopefully, people who check out the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, go to their website, check out some of their new branding, some of their new stuff that they've got going on anyway. And then, I know.
Sorry,
it's a barrel.
I just noticed the table that was sitting in front of us had a half a barrel underneath it. Anyway, I'm sorry to derail. I saw it and I was like, oh, it's so cool.
So,
It's pretty awesome.
We just have one laying around.
Maybe a couple.
Oh, this whole thing.
I just pulled this one out for you.
Just pulled this out of the warehouse. It's fresh. Sliced her up this morning.
This is why you were the longest chat that I had at Bourbon and Beyond and Bourbon on the Banks, is because we can just go. We just go forever.
It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
So basically just having those marketing materials, their rebrand, and then for us too, kind of tying our year up and being able to prepare to make those moves ourselves too. For us, that also means, we're staffing and we're working on some big projects and some big changes ourselves as far as our layout, and we're adding and growing physically here. So that also took some time as well. So kind of reaching those points finally, and additionally, I don't know if people realize, but you actually have to have like a certain number of like, distribution and product, and you have to have all these rungs that, yes, you pay to play to be there.
Yeah, of course.
But also you have to reach these certain number milestones to actually even be considered a part of the team,
And you guys at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you doubled about what your distribution was in 2019.
Yes.
Am I right? Okay.
Yes. We doubled a lot of things. So we grew a lot. So we grew from making max 12 barrels a day. That was the best we could do on a good day. And that was only
on a good day.
Yeah.
Interesting.
12 barrels. That was, and that's considering if we're not making product for a client.
Sure.
Or any other, distilleries, if we weren't, if we didn't have any firm problems, any things, whatever. So about 12 barrels. And only within the last year and almost 2 years now. No? Yeah. No, within the last year, we really started to up. So we grew our total barrels max was 230 barrels a day now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a massive uptick. Holy crap. I was not ready for that.
Huge.
I was thinking, it's going to be like 20. It's going to be like maybe 50, 230.
230. Now, that's still not all of our barrels. So,
But that's still like what is it? Like a 2,000% increase in production?
Yeah.
That is insane.
It is a lot. And so, with that comes the growth of rick houses, comes the growth of staffing, operations, all that fun stuff.
I rolled up and I saw that you guys were building a new rick house right now too. So, that's exciting to see that things are, you are responding in the only way I guess you can. I was going to say an appropriate manner, but that's
all we got.
That's all it is.
So you
can't do anything less.
That's pretty much our only option. Especially with bottle and bond. We got it.
Yeah, that's it. No kidding. How many barrels do you all have aging at the moment?
Ooh,
that might,
I don't fully know because I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly which ones are ours. Like numbers wise.
Right.
So, I can tell you we've got, if we want to do some quick math, which I'm not going to, so you can.
I'm terrible at math.
Okay.
I got an arts degree, so.
I'm in marketing, but like not the numbers side.
No, graphic design didn't teach you too much numbers.
So that's why I went with science and biology. I can tell you what's wrong with your body, but that's about it. Unsolicited?
Sometimes.
If it's that bad, then it's more for your benefit at that point. I promise you.
Sorry, continue, please.
But we've got our smallest rick house is 2,500 barrels.
Okay.
2,500 barrels, and that's where most of our stuff that you're trying has come from. For
Right.
Like we are just now tapping into our second rick house. So
Dang.
yeah. And so with that, we're the second rick house we built was around 22,000.
Okay.
No.
Huh?
Was it? Yes, 22,000. 11,000, 22,000, and then we have 50,000.
Dang.
Yeah.
Again,
50,000.
huge growth there.
Lots.
Too. So.
Yes. Lots. And then we're just adding on, going from there.
Sure.
So no total number of barrels that are ours, not totally sure, to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair. I just didn't know if it was locked in your brain somewhere. No, and you're like, I'll just pull that out for him.
If it's numbers, I just blank out.
It's all good.
This is a weird blackout that happens.
So I still want to talk a little bit about the move to the Bourbon Trail.
Yes.
Because it's funny that you brought up, you do pay to play.
Yes.
I mean, we've talked about it on the show before that, I mean, it is a significant chunk of change.
It is no small.
To join the trail. So I guess my question is, why now? Like, why 2020? Why not wait, maybe 4 years into having your product on the market?
Sure.
Or 5 years?
Go ahead.
Well, no, answer and then I'll do a follow-up.
Okay.
Because as I was thinking through that, I was like, maybe just go ahead and answer. Sorry.
just speak. Just go.
Sorry.
I would say I don't really have a great answer for it, except that it kind of just all the timing kind of came at a really good point. They kind of approached us about it, especially with, they're, like I said, they're doing a rebrand, and they were going to probably be printing new passports, new stuff anyway. So, we've kind of had our eye on them. They've kind of had our eye on us,
Yeah.
We've been looking across the room at each other for a little bit, kind of winking.
We get it.
And it just kind of came at a good time. We reached those numbers, we were able to do it, and it just seemed like a good point now. We were on the craft trail prior to this. And I think we're maybe the only distillery, I could be wrong on this, but we may be the only one that's moved from the craft trail to the main trail. That's a bold statement that I'm not 100% about, so I'm not sure. So I should take it back.
I mean, unless Ozzy Tyler was on the craft trail.
They might be.
Well, they're on the main trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if they jumped up.
I don't know either. See, I'm making bold statements.
Doesn't matter.
We'll find out. Where's Jamie? Fact check that. Joe Rogan. Anyway.
Not a big Joe Rogan fan.
Honestly, I'm not either.
Not a big Joe. I mean, I feel like he's got enough listeners.
He's fine. He's fine without us.
Yeah.
We'll stay in our bourbon
We'll stay
world.
in the Kentucky podcast world.
Exactly. But just making that jump, and it just kind of worked out to where, we've also expanded our distribution quite a bit within the last 6 months as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think being on the Bourbon Trail, it like you said, it's no small chunk of change, but it allows us to be. I think it allows us to more quickly be on more of a national scale as far as for a marketing standpoint goes and getting our name out there.
Yeah.
Because it is, it is a beast. The Kentucky Bourbon Trail is a beast, it is a destination. It's a whole reason to come visit, and it's it's a good way to get your name out there. Of course, there are plenty of distilleries that don't do it, that do just fine without it, and I mean, we can name some big ones right off the top if we
don't
wanted
have to. Yeah,
you
we don't
know,
have to.
but I think it just kind of came at a good time for us to, just go ahead and bite the bullet now and get used to it now while we're all still growing, I guess. It's kind of been the way we've operated since day one. So why stop now?
What's going to change today?
Yes, exactly.
So in response to that too, this is kind of part 2-ish. How do you see, because I mean, being big in the marketing side of it.
Yeah.
How do you see your role changing once the move has officially been, well, I guess it has officially been made, as that kind of falls into place?
I think I have had a lot of meetings about how my role's changing anyway. I think in general, though, all of our roles are expanding quite a bit. We all wear a lot of hats, and I think just the scale of what we're working on is just going to grow. With the social media aspect of it, that's just going to continue to grow. Probably be something that I'll have to just, keep monitoring, keep coming up with. I hope it grows. That's the whole point. And then, really, more of my day to day is actually like traveling and education and things like that. Myself and Jared, we are going to be the people out there. We're going to be hitting the streets.
Oh boy.
Yeah, buddy. You look out now.
Preaching the gospel.
Look out now. Pounding pavement, preaching the good word of bourbon. Well,
we have been proponents of what you all have done basically since day one.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna be super honest with you.
All right.
We had a whole conversation on the show a couple weeks ago.
Don't hurt my feelings.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I wouldn't do that. But the whole conversation revolved around, do they need it?
Right.
Is it necessary? And in turn, the conversation winds up being, is the Bourbon Trail necessary?
Sure.
Right?
Right.
And it's so funny because the industry is changing so much, and the boom has changed the way that distilleries approach their marketing,
right,
and everything. And I think that hearing actually from you say that it will help you bring more people in, I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah,
it totally makes sense. I don't know if need and could benefit from are two different things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I think that you guys have such a great product that, it speaks for itself, and it's going to, drive people here. Mm-hmm. I mean, you were still a part of the craft bourbon trail.
Yeah.
That's not anything to turn your nose up at.
No, absolutely
there are
not.
Fantastic distilleries that are on the craft bourbon trail.
Some of my favorites.
Yeah.
Honestly.
No, mine too. Yeah. But there is that notoriety that comes
with it. Up. And I think it's kind of a chicken versus the egg idea too with the Bourbon Trail, where bourbon is booming. It has its boom now, and I think in the day that we're in now, if they were like, let's make a Bourbon Trail, people would be like, oh, we don't really need that now. Bourbon's everywhere, Whereas, years before when the Bourbon Trail was in its infancy, bourbon wasn't as huge of a destination thing either, So I think prior to, it was very beneficial to have a trail, to have some sort of synergy that says, all right, people, come to Kentucky, come see this. And I do think too, we as Kentuckians see it as old hat a little bit. I think. I don't want to say old hat. We're used to it, right?
Very used to it.
We're very used to it. And not in I don't want to say old hat. It's a terrible term for it because it's still exciting. It's still, but it is nothing new to us anymore. And so it's kind of like watching the Patriots play the Super Bowl. Okay, they're in again. Like, we did something different this year. Yay!
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
so, but I think anybody outside of Kentucky, it's still very cool. It's still very new. It's still very unheard of, So I think that's the big gain, especially, is just not only having that notoriety, but having that more broad presence, name put out there.
Having the opportunity to work with this tour company that I do tours for,
Yes.
and seeing people coming in from all over the United States and going, oh, I didn't even realize that like Wild Turkey was good,
right?
Because it was stuff that we shot in college, or what how does Woodford compare to everything else? And there is that interest, there is, and then all of a sudden there's that tangible thing, the passport, where you can kind of look back and go, oh, I did something really cool,
right?
And it's in some ways it can kind of feel like those like the crane machines. Like, it feels like you've put in all the work, but maybe like nothing's really come from it, or anything. The gotcha machines or whatever. Like, it can kind of feel like a big shoot, I had the word and I lost it. A big gimmick.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there's so much honesty behind it. There's so much, like, just true to the bone. This is Kentucky. This is bourbon, about it.
Yes.
And there's no reason not to include Wilderness Trail in that conversation too, because like you said, you're staying true to the story of bourbon. You've got Bottled and Bond products out. I mean, that's a 150-year-old tradition in 130-year-old tradition in
who's counting?
Math.
Bourbon people are.
Yeah, bourbon people are definitely counting.
They're like, we know exactly.
Let me tell you the exact day.
They do, though. Love you, bourbon people.
Oh, but I mean, like, it's, it makes sense that this is the next step for you guys, being, just very true to form. So
that's it. Yeah, that's how we try to be.
Yeah.
That's how we try to be. We're both very nervous and excited about it. It's a overwhelming theory where feeling of, I don't know if my tummy hurts because I'm scared, or
if you're excited.
If I'm excited, or what I had for lunch today.
We call that anxiety.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Is my leg bouncing? I don't think so. It's fine.
So people can come to Danville.
Yes.
To come and visit you guys.
Please. Please.
Haley's desperate for you guys to come and check them out. No, it is a really beautiful campus. I know I showed up on a rainy day, but it's still, great to come over that hill and see the rick houses laying out and everything. And it's really cool here. It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm totally biased, but it's also, you come up, through our facility and you look at the firms, and out the windows are these big rolling hills and, the ponds and the farmland. And it is one of those where it feels very quintessential Kentucky when you're here, and that's one of the things I like about this facility, is that you feel very Kentucky when you're in here too.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it looks like, there's a farm right across the street from us. There's, the hills, they got it all, so
yeah, absolutely.
it is nice. We're excited for people to come down and check us out.
For sure.
And we're offering new tours as part of our growth too,
cool.
Like different tiers of tours, and probably going to be expanding our days and just trying to make it happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So we also wound up getting Shane Baker sitting down with us too. Hello, Shane. How are you?
Good.
You're
Am I coming through right over there?
There we are. Okay, got it.
Now.
I flipped the wrong switch.
It's his first day.
I need one of those.
Right.
Just
Flip
turn
the
it off.
switch, yeah.
Episode 116, and I'm just now figuring out how to
You get there
work
one
this
day.
thing.
Yeah.
Man, Shane, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Great meeting you. So Haley and I have spent a good chunk of time talking about kind of the day-to-day functions around the distillery, the marketing side of it, moving up to the Bourbon Trail as well, which congratulations.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yes, we're excited.
Yeah. Wanted to talk to you kind of about your origin story, I guess.
Okay.
What led you all to wanting to create a distillery, how the fermentation background helped you with that too. So I'll let you take it away.
Absolutely. Well, Haley's good in tune to this because it's all about music. Believe it or not, our story began around a rock band. So a mutual friend of mine and Dr. Pat's was our drummer. And we weren't in a band at that time, but he was a mutual friend, and we were all trying to do something together.
Yeah.
And that's how we came together. He was actually still going to school to get his PhD, and I was out in the corporate world doing engineering stuff. And so we were in the band, playing heavy metal rock. And we had a major following in Kansas, son. There's no doubt about it. We were pre-Slipknot, so we think we started that.
Oh, okay.
But nonetheless, it was a lot of fun. Our kids, were growing up together, but it wasn't going anywhere.
Sure.
For us, it was a hobby and so on. But through that, Pat and I, we just kept forging a remarkable friendship through that. And we both were of sciences. I'm an engineer. He's a microbiologist. And so it just seemed like towards the end, all of our conversations were around, like, what are we doing next?
Sure.
What are we doing together? And so we were naturally talking about, whiskey and different things. But we were two broke guys with a lot of band equipment and raising families at that time. Just normal Joe. So our budgets were pretty bleak. And so instead of looking at, which we did to start a distillery, which is a major capital investment, we didn't want to sell ourselves out. So we wanted to do it. We're entrepreneurs at heart. So we were like, let's just think of something else and come back to this.
Right.
And so we decided to use our science and just knowledge of what we're either doing in the basement or really in the industry, and form Firm Solutions. So in 2006, we formed that company, which was basically a consulting business.
Okay.
For breweries, wineries, distilleries, anybody that makes alcohol. And so when we dove into that business just feet first, and just see ya, take this job, and we left our careers with. And I remember I came home that day, and Melissa was like, "What? What? You did what?" And I was like, "Hey, baby, we're going to do this." And she just said, "She's like, I got you back. Let's do it."
That's awesome.
And we never looked back, after that. And so we were highly successful when we started that, because we brought something very unique to young, science guys, really enthralled in Kentucky whiskey. And we were trying to take this to industrial alcohol in the Midwest, right? So the fuel alcohol boom was where we got our start. And so it worked. We were applying just new technologies, a lot of other cool stuff in a very stagnant, old industry. And so we quickly, were making a name for ourselves, fixing problems, optimizing. And usually Pat would be at one end of the plant, I would be at the other, and we would always kind of meet in the middle, and we always fixed our customers' problems. And so that grew into product, development, research, and development opportunities. And so that company continued to grow. Well, as research and development got a little deeper, because we deal in yeast strains, enzymes, all of the adjuncts it takes to make alcohol. Yeah. So we're sitting on tons of yeast and all the different things, and customers are sending us, mash to analyze and do different things. We're teasing all the yeast out of those. So, we've got the world's largest repository of yeast here in Danville. But when we're doing that, they're sending us cook mash and finish mash for analysis. And I'm looking at it going, hey, we got yeast. They just sent us some cooked mash from, so-and-so legacy brand. I'm going to do something with that. So we're off in the corner, fermenting now, just seeing, what we can do in the lab with their stuff.
Yeah.
And as always, we're improving it. We're giving ideas. And so again, that's building the business. Well, all the while we're doing this, I'd bought a little 5-gallon research and development still, and we had it custom made for us. And really, it was just to kind of finish doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of training. We've trained a lot of people in the industry, and so this was just our way to kind of complete that. And so we really were liking what we were doing. And what was funny about that is sometimes you could come into our old Firm Solutions building, and you would just hear a dum, 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 thumping going down the hall, and you would smell like biscuits all throughout the whole building. And so naturally, everyone knew what was up. Sure. We had a kind of a little storage closet in the back, and I had this old steel pasted up with rye dough and bread, and I'd go to the store and just wrap biscuits around it. And we'd sit back there and distill, off those fermented batches, and we're testing different yeast, and we started really honing in on what mash bills we liked, what mash bills we didn't like.
Sure.
And we started getting serious at that point of saying, you know what? We looked back at about 2011, 2012, and said, hey, we've got a budget, we can start a distillery, and we've got all the tools. And a lot of experience to do it, because we'd been in and out of, by that point, over 1,000 breweries, wineries, distilleries all around the world. Yep. And so we had seen the best things to do and the wrong things to do.
Right.
And more often the wrong. Because that's what our business was, right? I never got a call from Greg Davis going, hey, we're tapping this barrel. Can you get over here and get your glass? No, it was more off of like, there's, something going on. So that's how we amassed such a remarkable, collective understanding of the process, because we were always called to the problem, and being scientific, we figured it out. That's what we do, as scientists. And so that's really kind of how it got started. And the next phase for us was, buying the first still from Vendome, shoving it into the warehouse of our other business, and, kind of getting our feet. And then very quickly, we realized that, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it. And so we jumped in, cashing our paychecks from that business basically, and took this on 100%.
It's so interesting to hear from the science side of it too, because there's kind of this almost ethereal, like head in the clouds thought about bourbon being made to taste, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of more of an artsy, crafty kind of way of looking at it. But how did the science background get you to that point where you were like, we know exactly what to do step by step?
Well, I think that it's really, you just answered it yourself. It's the science in how do you do something, right? So it's no different than writing a manual.
Yeah.
If I were to use science to write that manual, we just wrote the playbook.
Sure.
And so when we're looking to create a flavor profile, when we're looking to create like the whiskeys that we created, we had a taste profile in mind.
Sure.
We had the right mix of grains that we knew that we wanted to use. And some of that was, again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of experience in this industry. And like, for example, my grandmother, who retired from the industry for 50-something years at Stitzer Weller. So when you look back at Old Fitzgerald and Stitzer Weller, that's what my family grew up in. And so when you look at those old whiskeys, they're old-time mash bills. They're high, small grains. Mm-hmm. That's where the flavor comes from, right? Not a lot of corn. We're not talking about corn whiskey here. I mean, we're talking about a mixture of the right grains to create a flavor profile. And so we lean on, a lot of that experience of what we see to what we liked, but we knew how to put that together in terms of, hopefully, well, let's put it this way. We rolled the dice when we put it in the barrel, and we hoped that it would come out to where it did, and it did. It just exceeded our expectations. It really did.
That becomes the leaving everything up to chance. That's the, science cannot.
That's right. There's only so much.
It can't save us at this point.
That's right. There's only so much we know, even as old as this industry is. Even digging back all the way to Scotch, right? Let's go to Scotland and Ireland. It's even as old as that is. There are still things we're learning every day. There's still so many things we don't even understand. I mean, there are just even more volatile compounds in a whiskey that can't even be detected yet. We don't even have the technology, right? Yeah. So how can we even say that we even know? Several years ago, until an LCMS came out, we thought we'd solved the world, and now we're looking at things at parts per billion, right? Yeah. So now we're looking at just total different levels of things. So it's so complex that to me it's like playing the guitar. You can never master it. So it's going to keep you sucked in, just trying to play and trying to get better, trying to learn more. And the result of that is hopefully a damn good whiskey, coming out the back end.
Well, I mean, being both a guitar player and a bourbon drinker, I totally understand that. Yeah.
So Not the drummer.
They're just banging on pots and pans over there in the corner.
Something always about drummers.
They are.
Yeah, I'm looking over at Haley. Her dad's a drummer.
I know.
With one exception. Haley's dad.
Dads, am I right?
Dads. Can't live without them.
Maybe it's just drummers in hard rock and roll. They're usually dropping drumsticks, halfway through the set. So.
There's a specific breed of rock and roll drummers for sure.
Absolutely.
They hit the snare too hard and it just flies out. Yeah.
Chasing butterflies.
Looking at you.
I thought that was the bass player.
Hey, dude, we're on this song. Where you at? You're supposed to be keeping the beat.
So in terms of kind of your day-to-day function within the distillery, how much of your time is spent distilling your own product, and how much time is spent working on a contract basis and distilling for other people?
Well, we're currently doing about, I would say, a little over 30, maybe 35% contract production.
Okay.
And so that kind of trickles its way throughout the year. We try to kind of bulk it together so that, the most of the year we're just kind of doing our own thing. But it kind of trickles out throughout the year, maybe heavy, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and then from there on, it's pretty much always our stuff. So that would be the mix of our capacity. In terms of what are we focusing on, it's so much different today than back when we were thump, down the hallway. Like we were saying before, it was like, man, it was just so much fun. I'm going to come in, I'm going to get the butter tasting biscuits today. Yeah. It was because you can eat them right off the still. And then now, it's a full-blown beast. It's an octopus of a business.
Right.
And, we're on 163 acres here. Up the hill is our fifth warehouse.
Right.
And so, into this year, we'll have over 65,000 barrels in storage here. And
you were not far off.
It's taking a life of its own. So for me, I am having to rely more and more, obviously, on my team that we have. But Mike Heist in distilling, and he's our lead plant manager, and they've got it. We've been doing it for 7 years now. And so I really am relying on them. And it's, the front of the business is pulling me more in that direction. But I am a hands-on individual. I look over at Haley. I've got a bag of tools in my pocket. So, just today while I was late here, we just expanded our bottling line. So, I was turning some screws and showing people the screens, and because I've got to know how it works first. Sure. And so I'm, very involved, but my role is definitely changing, as the company gets older.
How does this this contract side of it too? How has that kind of influenced the way that you play around with your own product? Has that allowed you some creativity?
Absolutely.
Too?
Oh, definitely, because we don't want to make anyone else's whiskey like ours. Sure. So if not, that would be kind of a boring topic,
Right.
I think, because it'd just be one thing, right? And so purposely, when we do make something for someone else, we want them to have their own flavor profile, and we are genuinely, wholeheartedly interested in them being successful. I am a firm believer of how successful our industry is how successful we are.
Yeah,
and
for
so the more people who are very interested and capable of this, we support them. And so it's I think it kind of comes down to that.
I have to ask you too. I've already asked Haley about this, but the 6-year weeded bourbon's coming out this year.
Yes.
First off, I'm really excited for it. I can't wait, especially since I think
It's already on a map somewhere. Is that what you said?
I said it's on the release calendar
On
Breaking Bourbon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's. We don't have to talk about when it's going to be released or anything because
The word's already out.
we've already kind of discussed that a little bit. But that is so cool to see things change for you all. But at the same time, kind of reiterating what I had said earlier, from day one, we were kind of like, this is really, really good at 4 years old. I wonder what it's going to be like even older. But at the same time, why change it if it's working out for you?
Man,
you know?
this is an ongoing debate.
It is.
It really is.
I told him yes, but no.
I'll be honest, it's something we struggle with, and mainly because now we're outside of our scientific realm, right? We can't put a hypotheses together on this and figure. I mean, now we're into quantum physics or something. I mean,
Right.
so what we're now into really the guessing game, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I say guessing game, we know what the whiskeys taste like at 4.5, 5 years old, now 6,
Sure.
and we also have some almost 7-year-old.
Getting
That was
there.
our first barrels that we're never releasing. But it's amazing the change in the age and the quality of the whiskey. It definitely gets better in time. There's no doubt about it, especially for wheated bourbons.
Yep.
It's very unique for our wheated bourbon to be really as good as it is at 4.5 years old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is entering its wheelhouse at 6 to 8 years. That's where we've always had a goal of getting it there. And that's still our goal. So we're still coming into that. But the debate is like, when we hit the 6, we would start pulling back on our younger stock to get obviously, everything older.
Yeah.
And, man, it's one by one of feedback we get of like, what are you doing? This is great.
Yeah.
And so we're
Don't
just like,
change
we're having to rethink again what we already thought we knew, which was nothing about this side of the market.
Yeah.
And so it's really a challenge. I mean, we're listening to the market. That's what we only know how to do.
Yeah.
And so right now we're keeping a balance, but now really our original 4.5 is really now like closer to 5.
Sure.
So all of the whiskeys really hitting the market now are 5 years old to coming into that 6.
Yeah.
And there may be an occasional 4.5 that'll slip out of here. But it's just, that's where we've tried to push the inventory. And now we're like,
snuck away.
yeah. And so
Sometimes.
now we're really challenging ourselves with that. But I can say, and we've been into those barrels. We've got some 6 months or 6 years and 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And man, they are. I mean, they're coming in there awesome. But uniquely, a little different than the 4.5 to 5 year olds. So you're starting to pick up a lot of that deeper wood, and the caramels are really stretching out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just the mouthfeel's changing.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see where it's going. I can't wait till we get to our 8 to 10 because we're holding some for that.
Yeah.
But right now, what looks to be that the market's telling us is we're going to be keeping our bottle and bonds in that 4 to 5.5 range, and then our 6 to 8s are going to probably be just either a different color label or it's just going to be something different. So it is what it is, and if you're a fan of these super sweets, then we're going to try to have those available too.
So is this going to be something too that we're going to see trend-wise with the other products, the rye whiskey, the rye mash bourbon too?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, even on the rye, uniquely, we're again listening to the market, listening to our ambassador champions out there, the mixologists, the people really driving the scene, at the grassroots level, and our rye is a single barrel cast strength, right? So it's sitting up top and people, are grabbing it. But for, a bartender to put that in a cocktail, they're like, they're like, challenging themselves. Yeah. And so what they've asked for is a lower proof rye whiskey that they can, just put on behind the bar. And so we've looked at that, going like, okay, hey, our ryes are the high proof. And so keeping along our Settler Select line, which we created that really line extension for our rye whiskeys, we are thinking pretty hard that maybe midsummer we'll come out with a below 100 proof, but above 94 proof, because we are not low proof people. But offering that down to where we've got a little bit more, I think, reachable, for that price point, as well as it for being something that you don't feel bad pouring into, a cocktail type of thing. It being a single barrel cast strength, almost like a barrel pick, which is what those really are.
Has that been revealed to anybody else?
Whoops! Did I say that out loud?
Shane, your mic's on. It's on.
Well, sorry about that. Well, I guess that's the first public announcement.
Yeah. That is really cool. To hear that. I mean, I was just kind of under the assumption naturally, because everything's been 100 plus so far, that we wouldn't see anything coming out lower than 100 proof. That's kind of been
our position until again, so many what we call experts are like, hey, this is really for the rye whiskey category. I don't think you'll see that out of us for a bourbon. No. I mean, we are pretty ironclad on where we're at with that. We're again, we just like high proof whiskeys, but rye whiskey's a different animal. And there's a different, there's a whole cocktail revolution going on right now with that. And really it's about the price point, probably more than anything. And again, being more of a reachable, because it's our highest price whiskey we've got, because sometimes we only get 160, 150, bottles out of a barrel.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if we're proofing that down to, 80 proof, I could get, a lot more. So it's all about, we got to stay in business.
Don't do 80 proof.
No. No, we are dead against
don't do
that.
Shane.
But in order to kind of flip that product the other way and get it down closer to where we've got our bourbon set, we've got room to do that, and again, that's what we're kind of being asked. So we're learning there and listening a lot. Yes. So
is a lot of that getting filtered through you, Haley?
Yes, a lot of it. Well, just to Shane's note about especially a lot of big bourbon people, especially bartenders, it goes against their guttural urges to mix something like a high proof cast strength rye whiskey. That's it goes against their moral codes, and so
I'm a big fan of Turkey 101 in a cocktail.
So
that's a high proof whiskey.
But I think there is a lot of people who combat that in a lot of ways, but having something that's a little bit more approachable. And
honestly, I think it's more about the reachability of the product, and I'm a consumer, and again, it's course. Like is it something that you want to enjoy every night, but it's something I'm switch over. And again, we've thought about that, and we've always wanted to be a family brand, right? Mm-hmm. A value brand that you didn't mind drinking and sharing, and not when you pulled out when the special people came over. We really want to be just an everyday family brand, and hopefully we're getting close to that.
Yep.
Even internally, it sounds like the family side of it is really important. And I think that you even kind of touched on that, Haley, earlier when we were talking about the F Cancer bottles that were released, and how that was kind of semi in reaction to, the Wilderness Trail family member.
Absolutely.
Getting hit with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're very much a family. We,
Yeah, 100%.
our newsletters, the family tree program, but everything we do is very family oriented. We have a lot of, a lot of young ones that go play together, and, we try to get together for our company picnics, and everything we do is very, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
as
just
the old cliches are, we spend more time at work than often with our families, in terms of the hours, unless you count sleeping.
Yeah.
In terms of just get those 2,000 words in, today, and so it's really important to us not only to really have a team that is family that wants to be here, that wants to be a part of this. I mean, that's how I think you get the most out of people, is because they're a part of it, and they want to grow with things, and then throughout that process, everybody's lives just become very entangled, and we start relying on each other, outside of work, and next thing you know, things just again, it just becomes a deeper family. And that's very, very important to us, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, with that in mind, and the fact that, the family is making big moves, like jumping up to the Bourbon Trail and seeing your distribution double and triple and, eventually quadruple nationwide, international and everything, what's next for the brand? Is it new products? Is it continuing this expansion? And by new products, not necessarily taking what you already have and reconfiguring it, but is there an American whiskey on the horizon, a single malt, something like that, or are you sticking pretty close to the rye and the bourbon?
Very good question. Again, one we debate all the time internal, because we don't want to become like the S curve, right? We don't want to just, right, hey, what are these guys haven't done nothing. And then we look over at my favorite distillery, Maker's Mark, and they've had one product for,
That's
their
true.
entire, so
No
I
one
have
seems
never
to mind
fell out of
that.
love with, I've never fell out of love with those guys. And I guess the first part of that answer is we are so busy right now doing what we're doing. Our focus is getting better at doing what we're doing. I mean, it's just making better of the whiskeys that we're making now, improving our times, and just everything we're doing in the market. We're just trying to do the wing walking. I mean, we're moving fast now, and we're trying to get our footing, and we want to have really solid footing before we really try to take on more. And when I say that, we're building 2 rick houses a year. I mean, we're constantly turning dirt over here.
Right.
So we it's not like we're like, we're not going to do anything, this year. I mean, we are in constant expansion.
Yeah.
And that, and growing in the States, so we are probably as busy as we've ever been, ever in our business today. And so, but we do step back from that and try to smell the roses a little bit and see like what is next. And we are purist at heart, and Pat would be saying the same thing here. So we've never really been excited about anything outside of just really good, solid Kentucky bourbon and Kentucky rye whiskeys. And so, but we work with so many people, right? And we're doing some American malt for some other people. We're doing some 4-grain whiskeys for some other people. And again, through that process, we're like, hey, these let's make a couple more of these and set aside and to play around with. But it's like it's in our peripheral. I mean, we're thinking about it, but we're really focused on what we're doing today. And even down to somebody was asking about finishing a whiskey. And I'm just like, I'm just, why finish a good whiskey? That's always been my question.
A whole nother animal.
There's a statement there. Why finish a good whiskey? Yeah. And, but again, I'm intrigued. I like what Nelson Greenbrier and those guys are doing. Charlie and those guys.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love their whiskey. So it's like, well, I wouldn't mind making a little bit of that, occasionally. I mean, it's pretty good stuff. And so it just kind of comes back to priorities. And we're, again, back to that scientific realm. We're very regimented We're always focusing things in threes. So, we're going to master those before we kind of move on.
That's awesome. Shane, thank you so much for sitting down with me for a little bit.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on, I think.
That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Haley, thank you as always for sitting down with me as well.
Thank you, Haley.
This was great. Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Once again, my thanks to everybody at Wilderness Trail. Of course, specifically Haley and Shane. It is always great to sit down with Haley. She is so much fun to chat with. Shane, it was great to meet you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and getting to talk about your passion. Of course, always love hearing about the industry from the inside, especially those who are the crafters and the masterminds behind the products that wind up on the shelves. So again, thank you all so much. Cheers to you guys. Here's to the future. How about that little scoop about that rye, though? How about that? That was pretty cool. So you have that to look forward to in, as Shane put it, midsummer. So yeah, more on that as we approach that. So tips and bits real quick before I wrap it up with some plugs. So I have been listening to a podcast recently called The Little Dum Dum Club, and it's basically a couple of comedians who just sit down with other comedians as well, and they just kind of shoot the breeze for about an hour, and then the hosts, Tommy and Carl, have just kind of a conversation about what they got to record with their friends. So it's very funny. There are hilarious stories. If you know me, you know that I love Australian podcasts for whatever reason, and Australian comedy in particular. So you kind of start to see all of the things kind of tie into each other, like Don't You Know Who I Am and Do Go On, and all these really, really fun and exciting podcasts that I have enjoyed so much over the past few years. That does it for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I cannot wait for you guys to hear next week's episode as well. It is really special. It's going to be a lot of fun. Curtis and Swan are, of course, coming back. So definitely stick around for that. If you want to follow up with me on social media, I am at PureRitter1492 on all platforms. If you want to follow the show, it is at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can leave us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes. That is such a great way for people to find out about the show. It really plugs into that algorithm, pushes it up in the charts, gets people just seeing if they're just searching for Bourbon Podcast. It puts us a little bit higher in that ranking. So if you could do that, if you're able to do that, or if your podcast provider actually does allow that or provide that opportunity, please do that. And if you cannot do that, tell your friends about the show. I was recently shown a statistic that said that it was like 65% of everybody who listens to podcasts listen to them because they were recommended by somebody else. So if you love this show and you want other people to listen to it, please let your friends know. It'd be a great way for them to plug into us, to find out more about it. You can find all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. You can send questions or comments to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail for Barrel Rings at 859-428-8253. And for next week's Barrel Rings, I want to ask you guys, what is your most anticipated release of 2020? What are you most looking forward to seeing coming out this year? So again, that's 859-428-8253. That's where you can call in to Barrel Rings. And then last but not least, you can become a supporter of the show at patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. That is such a great way for you to support this show. It keeps the lights on. It keeps us being able to hold up the hosting costs and really just kind of on a day-to-day basis. It means a lot to those of you who already are donating, and if you are considering doing that and you are able to do that, please, we really do appreciate it. You get really awesome rewards like bonus episodes. You get the pregame chats that come out the day before episodes drop. The bonus episodes come out once a month. So February's actually just came out as of me doing some of this editing and recording as well. You get some live streams, you get some hangouts, you get some free t-shirts, you get just a myriad of different things. So again, you can find all that at patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. That does it for me this week. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I am so happy that I got to spend this time with you. I will see you next week. But until then, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast. Cheers, guys.